Hi, I'm Sherry Damaris. Welcome to Macro Magic. Today I have with me Ann Wilkinson, who is an osteopathic therapist.
Yes.
And Ann's also studied a lot of spirituality, homeopathy. She has some very interesting news to share with us during this pandemic. So welcome, Ann.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what is an osteopathic, like what did you study and how did that lead you to your next sort of incarnation into spiritual healing?
Thank you for asking. It's interesting. Osteopathy and homeopathy were household words in the 1930s. And somehow they got umbrellaed under general medicine and then kind of lost. And they're resurfacing, which is great. And they're resurfacing because they're so successful and they're easy. Osteopathy is really noticing the body as a structural being, not only as a structural being, and it very much attends to your alignment and your posture, but it also acknowledges that everything from what you're thinking to what you're eating, to your spiritual connection, all affects your posture. If you feel overwhelmed and you're not eating right and your muscles are tight, or you're eating well and you're thinking wonderful thoughts and you're vibrant. So osteopathy recognizes that you can be 80 years young or 20 years old. And some of the information that I'm going to share with you today will teach you how to be young at any age.
Great, we love that. And you have so many degrees, you've gone through so many years of schooling, like just in a real intense path
Yes.
to become a healer. Do you want to share with us a little bit about what, your background and how you became, interested in this whole field of healing?
I almost feel like I was born into it. It's interesting. One of the books that I'm going to share with you, that I'm sharing with you today, Medical Medium, this man, Anthony Williams, I'm so glad that he's come forward to the public because he speaks about a lot of things that I've known for years, but I just was afraid to say maybe. And so he's really teaching us how to go down to the grassroots of our cellular health and taking ownership of your organs and really, loving them and taking good care of them and making optimal health that way. But the reason why I mention him is that as a little boy also, he would hear in his left ear, like he would walk down the street and hear this person has diabetes and this has that, and he didn't want to hear that. And it wasn't until he was 25 and he actually had to call on that voice for help that he made a deal that if you help me save my drowning dog, I will now listen to you. And now he's produced 5 books and really changed my life. I read his book and lost 20 pounds. So I recommend Medical Medium, Anthony Williams. It kind of teaches you to forage with fruits and vegetables all day, just fruit and vegetables. And now I'm supplementing that for the protein with the work of Dr. Naram, who I'm going to talk a lot more about, with mung bean soup to get your proteins. And I really feel fantastic from combining those two.
Yeah, I've heard about her diet recently. A lot of my friends who
Pankaj Naram,
Yes.
Dr. Pankaj Naram, I'm going to speak about this book, Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer. It's the #1 bestseller right now. It's a great read. It's easy. There's recipes in here that there's things in your kitchen that you can just create to help yourself. And right now, when people are kind of afraid to leave their home, this book truly is invaluable. And it's also a fun book to read. I did bring one other book, as you mentioned, my spiritual journey, Saima, Her Holiness Saima. She's so beautiful. My spiritual journey, I feel like, started with her 26 years ago. I was teaching a group of people how to stretch their body, and I ended it with a meditation. And in the meditation, I said that we were divine and to really feel our divinity. And one woman said, we're sinners. And then another woman sitting next to her said, speak about yourself, not me. And they got into an argument. And so when they left, I sat in the room by myself and cried. And I said, God, can you please teach me a language that I can speak to all people and not offend anyone? And it was within a week that I met Her Holiness Saima. She wasn't Her Holiness Saima then. I just thought she was a friend that was really neat and was feeding people and helping people, and that I wanted to support her. And so I would show up wherever she was and do body work on her and just be like, I just want to make her be able to do what she does so well better. And ended up with a great friendship, and then ended up one day saying, like, I've seen her heal and help so many people that I think if she told me you would sprout wings and you can fly off of the building, I would like do it, because and then I had to say, like, I think I actually have a guru. So she's my spiritual master. She's the one that introduced me to Dr. Pankaj Naram. And it's so funny because they're like yin and yang. They're like a male and female version of the same kind of what they call Shakti, or energy, like your life force. And one time when I was traveling to India with her, I got to spend a lot of time with him. And he was the epitome of health at the time, you know, and really very fit and energetic. And both of these beings, they stay up all night. They stay up all night, either like literally treating from 6:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the morning. But then Her Holiness Saima is answering emails and sending faxes, and we would literally sneak into our room because we would tuck her into bed, and then we'd come in and we would catch her all the time, just wide awake, working at all hours of the night. Dr. Naram would leave his office at 2:30 in the morning and go out and put blankets on homeless people and then feed stray dogs. So when you have teachers like this, you tend to start to believe anything that they say, because they are the living proof. You know, they're so healthy and happy. And so I was excited when Dr. Clint Rogers followed Dr. Naram for 10 years and documented everything. And so the book, it's quite pleasant, but when you buy the book, you put your receipt number on myancientsecrets.com, and I'll have a slide about that. Then you have access after each chapter to watch videos of Dr. Naram actually speaking. And they're quick little videos, but you love watching him and hearing his voice. And so anything that you learned and you read, then you have this visual to back it up. So I really like the style in which he did this, and there's journaling right in the book, and they just couldn't have made it easier to grasp the concepts. And what's really fun is these concepts are 2,500 years old. They are translated from 2,500-year-old Vedic scriptures on how to bring miracles into your life, how to be healthy and vibrant at any age, how to live past 100 years old in incredible health. I'm happy about that, because my grandmother lived to almost 104. And we would giggle because if you dropped a quarter on the ground, she could bend down, pick it up, and stand up gracefully, more gracefully than anyone. You didn't hear a creak, a click, and nothing. And so I know that I have the genealogy for it. But honestly, like right before this pandemic started, I was feeling rather like that I was losing my luster for life. And every time I would stand up and sit down, I would make a noise like, oh, you know, and I just was feeling like, is this it? Was this all that I have to offer the world? Am I going out like this? You know, I really was feeling rather blasé. And next thing you know, I get an email from Dr. Rogers saying that he was going to do a Zoom talk, and would I like to join it? And I'm so grateful, because technology doesn't usually afford me to do that. I don't have great internet where I live, and I don't know so much about technology sometimes, so it was quite a miracle for me to make that call. But when he reintroduced these things that Dr. Naram told me 15 years ago that I was using 15 years ago, and then I started to use them again, my skin has changed. I am running. When I started this, I would walk downhill and my left knee would hurt. I am running. I mean running 1.5 miles, hiking 5 miles, no pain. Even one day my daughter and I were FaceTiming, and she was like, Mom, I think I'm not going to FaceTime anymore. You don't look so good. You look kind of old and wrinkly. And I was like, I know, I'm looking at this screen. I started eating ghee, not knowing that it would help my skin, just because we were working on that. We were making ghee at home. It was one of the things we were reading about in the book. And within weeks of eating the ghee, I had a little appointment with an Ayurvedic doctor in India over the phone, the best $30 I've ever spent. And I said, I swear, either I can't see very well, but I don't see the wrinkles anymore, and I don't see the crinkly. And even my daughter said the other day, Mom, what are you doing? You don't look old anymore. You look great. And And I said, could it be the ghee? It's the only thing I've done differently. And he giggled, and he kept giggling through the rest of it because he said, all the things that you're saying are different. I said, my skin feels velvety now. He said, absolutely. The ghee, it heals your gut. And our skin is a reflection of what's going on inside. And it also, like, it takes the animal products that have attached to the vessels in our body, it pulls it off, so it decreases your cholesterol. And just simple.
So getting back to what you're doing, what you're offering for your, with all your spiritual work, you're combining then
So my first degree was in physical therapy. And then I was very limited by what codes fit in so that we could bill properly. But when I studied osteopathy and learned that it was the whole being, and that you really had to look at the whole being, and that nature was a way to access their spiritual self without infringing upon belief systems, that I actually moved my practice to my farm. I started putting patients on horseback. I put them in the pool. I hiked them to the creek. So when I treat someone, I listen to them. They tell you everything. And many of the things that they've been told were not important actually are very important. And so they feel heard and they feel understood, and then they start to really tell you everything once they realize that there's somebody who cares.
Right.
And so they give me the secrets and the clues as to what will make them feel better. So I not only look at their alignment, and if people are crooked, when they walk, there's so much more work and energy being spent than if they're in appropriate alignment and they just go aerodynamically through space. So my first job is to get you upright, so that you just have more energy, and it decreases the pain quite a bit. And then I interject, and then I'll even time my patients' appointments sometimes, where, like, I'll have just made my energy drink and I share it with them, or I'm cooking and I ask them to help, like, hey, can you squeeze the water out of the tofu? Would you like to do that? And then they realize it's not something so hard. It's not something very out there, and then they eat it and like it, and they realize that it's just because it's green doesn't mean it doesn't taste well,
So that you're introducing them to a whole different way of living in terms of health.
A whole different way of living, but more important, to empower them and to show them that they really have the control, to take that control back and to trust their instincts.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, we're going to break for commercial. When we come back, we're going to hear more about your work, which I'm really excited, and share some photos of what you're doing, and talk to you more about some of these healers.
I appreciate it.
Number 7. Number 8.
9 regular. Oh, wait. 13 giant. The usual?
Of course. Number 1.
Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Today's show is sponsored by Dr. Jacqueline. Take charge of your life personally, financially, and professionally. Visit drjacqueline.com to book an appointment today.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There you go, Richard. Oh! Is that too hard for you?
No. Is it too hard for you?
Woo! We're playing catch now. Oh, shit.
What do I want to be when I grow up?
Hi, I'm Sherry Damaris, back with Ann Wilkinson, an osteopathic body worker. We're talking about her journey through medicine and also through spirituality and what she does with her clients when she meets them. Welcome back, Ann. It's so fascinating, your work, because you're combining all different sort of techniques, you know, and teachings and information from the books. I just want to get a better idea of, like, when a client comes to you, so you work on their posture first, then you sort of work on helping them develop a healthy lifestyle. But are there more things that you do as well?
It's interesting. People come to me with problems that no one else has been able to help. I hear the same thing when they come in. I've tried everything. And then they'll say to me, no one's ever done this. And I'm not sure why it's still like that, because it's nothing, you know, strange. I have the person stand in front of me and I look at their posture, and there's certain things that I'll notice, like, is one shoulder, you know, forward? Are they, you know, leaning forward in space? Is their chin jutted out? I might notice a scar.
So do you give them exercises to remedy that?
Here's what I'll do first is I'll put them on the table and I'll balance their pelvis, and their C1 and C2 derotated, and if their cranial bones are not aligned properly. So what I do is restore the craniosacral system so that its craniosacral rhythm, the in and out of the head and the rocking of the sacrum, can allow cerebral spinal fluid to bathe the brain, to let the brain, when cerebral spinal fluid, fresh fluid comes up and gives the nerves, the cells of the brain, oxygen, nutrition, and then they actually, like, eat it, and then they literally, like, poop. Everything excretes. And then something has to come in and take that out. But if the sacrum, if someone has landed really hard on their sacrum and it's jammed, or they got hit in the head and one side isn't moving, that flow doesn't occur that way. So they'll come in and they'll be, especially my head injury patients, they don't answer questions correctly. I don't know how they negotiate, lawyers, doctors, things like that. It's very sad. And sometimes no one even knows that they got a head injury. Because if the head moves hard and fast enough, the injury occurs inside the head. It doesn't necessarily take a blow from outside. So these people get lost. Many people get lost in the shuffle. And you know, so I kind of distill what they're saying, and sometimes it traces all the way back to a first injury in high school in basketball.
Wow.
And then maybe that ankle didn't repair, and so they started to walk funny, and then they had children, and then they started to get headaches because it moves up the chain. And then they'll go to a psychologist who will wonder if they're happily married, and then they just go off on these tangents, you know, that are just crazy. And then when I listen to it, I go back and I'm like, oh, we need to make sure that your foundation is supported again. We have to get that ankle and that knee right. And then, like, sometimes the headache goes away before I even address the neck and head, because everything falls. The body wants to heal itself. But sometimes it's just tipped too far, and you just have to tap it back. And so structurally, that's where my focus has been for years. But then sometimes I realize, like, why doesn't it stick? And why do people have reoccurring patterns? I mean, somebody gets rear-ended 5 times. Something is going on there. You know? So somebody who's rear-ended 5 times, there may be an issue in the past that they're not looking at, something like that. Or that if it keeps happening over and over again, it's inflammation from what they're eating. So for instance, I have several men that are coming to me with, like, the inability to relieve themselves And like they wake up in the middle of the night and they have to stand in the bathroom for 45 minutes to go to the bathroom, and then they only sleep for an hour, and they feel that urge again, and their sleep is disrupted. And disrupted sleep can make you really, it can create pain in the body, let's put it that way. And I found out that these guys have gluten problems, like their abdomen is so swollen, and men, their pain fibers are different than women's. There really is almost a different species sometimes in a way, and they present with the same issues but in a different way with different symptoms. And so with these men, it was very hard to get them off of gluten because they eat like 3 cheesesteaks a day. So to try to convince a man that eats 3 cheesesteaks a day, that would be better for them to eat mung bean soup. But when they actually like maybe meet somebody in the waiting room or something like that, or sometimes somebody comes in at the wrong time, but it's absolutely perfect. Like there's a lot of divine energy that happens. And so that's why I'm glad that I've recognized really strongly the spiritual element to healing. But people really, they tell you if you listen.
Yes, if you really listen. Well, we have some photos that you sent in.
Oh, yes.
Of, this is Sai Mai.
I am Her Holiness Sai Ma. I'm so grateful to her because whenever she would have her yearly events, she would always invite some amazing doctor to teach us. And so she really helped me dovetail the spirituality. And then she introduced me to Dr. Naram, who introduced me to Dr. Clint Rogers. And I just am, and many, 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 many wonderful people. So I am incredibly grateful to her. Just, she's so beautiful in every possible way. And this book is so good because if a patient comes in and they'll be like, oh, my brother just got diagnosed with cancer, or my boyfriend just broke up with me, and I'll say, just open the book. And honestly, they'll open the book and it might say, illness is falsehood, or something about relationships. It's a little bit magical, this book. So I like that book that way, to just spontaneously open it.
Works on the emotions.
And this is Dr. Pankaj Naram with Dr. Clint Rogers. And Dr. Pankaj Naram has treated millions of people. He was the doctor of the Dalai Lama, the doctor of Mother Teresa. He is the most famous pulse doctor in the world. He recently passed. Dr. Clint Rogers followed him for 10 years and just documented with video, and then created this beautiful book, which I'm sure more books are going to come because the stories are endless. And if you put your receipt in, you can get on phone calls too, where people, like in the book, a young girl was in a coma. And they used milk on one side, a bowl of milk and a bowl of onions, and put some herbs in her navel. Not only did she come out of the coma, 3 other women in the room came out of comas. One of them had been in there for like a year. And so on one of the calls, that young girl got on the call, but she was 21 now. And so then you really can feel that you can really feel the stories even more. So it's a very multidimensional, this group of healers.
Yeah, and the fact that you're incorporating it into your work.
So this man here is in his 70s. I think he's 75 if I'm not mistaken. He's Mr. India 5 times and is now going for 6. So see, when I see this, then I want to do whatever they say. If someone is 100 pounds overweight and they're telling me to eat something or do something, I would tend not to listen. But when somebody is looking like this, the proof is in the pudding, I say, and I really would want to do whatever they say. And really, we are love. We are love at our core. Everybody is. I don't care how many shells, how many personalities someone has put in between that core thing. We are love. So sometimes a patient, they will show me x-rays and they will tell me things like, I had a chiropractor that came to me for treatment and then showed me these x-rays that were so frightening. And I literally, for a moment I was like, performance anxiety, got really nervous. And then I just remember, just love this being. Just put my hands on her, just send her love. And then, like the medical medium, sometimes I hear the voice in my left ear. And even sometimes I'll argue with it. Like one time it said, touch the person's left foot. I said, they said they had pain everywhere except their left foot. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do it. They won't make any sense. And I argued with the voice. And it just got so persistent that as I was done with my treatment, I just flicked the left foot just to make it be quiet. And the person sat up and was like, last night I twisted my ankle. I thought I broke it. Would you please look at it? And then I realized, Anne, you have to give up the fight,
So you're using your intuition while you're doing the body work.
I will say things that I haven't even thought, that it didn't go through my cognitive mind. It'll just come out, and it might even be in a tone that I would not normally use. Every time it's received like, oh, I really needed to hear that. Thank God.
So with the, all the books that you brought in, especially the medical medium, you're getting like guided through the healing process with the person.
The medical medium, when I read it, I cried because it was things that I've observed by being in the medical system that I've observed, and he actually stated them out, and so I'm very grateful for him.
And here you are with some grandkids.
These are my grandbabies, yes.
And you're researching your books.
I had just gotten it. I was waiting for it, and they also had viewed the calls. And one of the calls that Dr. Naram has some orphanages that he financially backed, and he recently passed. And they really thought that children would feel alone. So on one of our calls, they just asked each one of us to say, I love you and I'm with you. And my grandchildren will say it now to people, like they see the people in the Mass and they'll be like, I love you and I'm with you. They say it to each other, they say it to me, but they say, I love you and I'm with you. So we really are love. And so even when we're afraid, there's only two energies really in the world, love and fear. So whenever fear comes up, and especially right now with what's going on, instead you just tap into love. Even if you just have to think of somebody like Her Holiness Saima, or you think of your grandbaby or your dog or whatever that you love, if whenever fear comes up, if you can just touch into that frequency of love. And right now, like, frequency medicines are becoming available to us. The cannabis industry, that's a new, the herb industry is becoming available to us. Many things that were withheld are becoming available. So, and there are things that you can do within your own home, and just empowering people to heal themselves. Healing, really, you are the healer.
Yeah, it's actually, the pandemic, they're saying, is a time to really look inside. Really look inside and start exploring your lifestyle, your thoughts, your feelings, your past. The answer is not going to be coming from outside. I just had Colin Campbell on the show talking about, especially changing your diet and your lifestyle, the most important thing right now.
It really is.
So it's a good time to just step back and reevaluate all those things. And you have such nice tools to work with.
Saima said, I've been asking you for years to do this. Now it had to be forced upon you. I have to tell you, I feel healthier than I have felt in decades. And I feel like God just dropped this book in my lap, at the beginning of this pandemic. Actually, the book hadn't come out yet, but Dr. Rogers was reading chapters of it to us on these calls. And I just feel like it was such divine intervention for me, and it just turned my path into where, like, I feel like I'm 28 years old. And I will have my 60th birthday soon in October.
That's
and,
wonderful.
I'm boogie boarding, jogging. I'm the only one who can keep up with my grandchildren. My daughter and their father can't keep up like I can. So,
well, how can people reach you when they want to come maybe to your place and get a treatment or read about you? How can they access you?
So my website is handsonhealth.de, because my office for 20 years was in Delaware.com. My phone number, I welcome people to call me on the phone, 302-275-4198, 302-275-4198, Ann Wilkinson. Please call me. Call me with questions. People, I get messages from WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, text messages. I'll be in airports. I did travel a lot before this, traveling all over the world doing clinics. But I loved in airports, people would be like, my dog swallowed something, what do I do? Do you
help animals too.
Do you have a homeopathic kit? I found out that if people's animals are not well, they don't get well. Like, they're so preoccupied, so I'll have to, that's how I started to work with animals. I was like, here, do this for your animal, then the animal's fine, and then they can pay attention to themselves.
Well, Ann, it was so nice having you. It's so wonderful that you're into all these things, because it's just food for thought. And also, I'm hoping that our studio audience calls you, asks you questions, comes to visit, gets some help, because you're working emotionally, physically, all different realms, especially on the spiritual aspect, which is really nice.
We want cures. We want cures. I don't need to see the same person over and over again. What I love is when I had a man drive 5.5 hours. He looked like he was 80. I worked on him. He drove 5.5 hours back. He looked like he was 35. He called me and asked me to come there and do a clinic. 17 people, just because people went, "What happened to you?" Oh my God!
You changed their energy.
That's how I would rather do it.
Well, we have to wrap up, and so thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.
And please join us next time on another episode of Macro Magic.
Blessings.